Welcome to the Obojima Podcast. My name is Jeremiah, and this is Adam, and we are the writers for Obojima. Missing one of our compatriots, but that's okay. We'll move on without him. Take a moment of silence. He'll be back. We are just going to jump into writing Obojima as we come up with cool concepts in the podcast, talk about the amazing, awesome world that we've built, and continue to expand it. And today we will be jumping into a location that we couldn't put in the first Obojima book because we didn't do it.
Because it was naughty.
Because we filled this book to you. Because it was a bad boy.
It was very bad.
Anyways, this location was what was one of the original ideas we came up with, called the Wandering Temples. This idea that there are these three ginormous temple structures that are built into the backs of giant creatures.
Yeah.
That like crawl around Obojima. And that idea is really cool, and I still think it's awesome, and I still think there's something there. But then there was a couple things that occurred. One, we came to the conclusion of, why are there temples? Like, what are these temples? We don't have any religious organizations in Obojima. Now, they could be like shrines to something, or they might be spirit domains, or we were trying to figure out what the creatures were, and we couldn't figure out what to do with them. And then we came up with this concept. And I'm going to say this concept, and it's going to sound really cool, and then I'm going to tell you why we didn't make it into the book. We had this idea of these giant, like, what if they were floating? Like, what if instead of they were monsters, what if they were these giant floating structures with, like, castles in them? And, they floated around, and maybe one of them is like sundered, like it's old and abandoned. Another one's in pristine condition, and another one has been turned into like a commune, like with like, it's this old structure that like is like maybe a propeller at the bottom and it like flies above, and people look up towards them, but not a lot of people go up there. But there's a group of people that made it up and turned it into like a commune with farms and things like that up in the sky. And that was such a cool idea because there's so many creatures that live in the sky. I think having locations in the sky is so interesting.
Yeah.
And so we were coming up with these concepts, and then we came to this conclusion. We're like, well, what if there are creatures inside of it? Like, what if there's these old monsters, and these flying platforms had some sort of nefarious reason to them, and these maybe occasionally some of these wake up and they spill from the sky and they terrorize the ground below, and we're like, whoa, this is so cool, this is such an awesome idea. And we were coming up with these things, and we had all these ideas, and we had the harpies were going to interact with them, and then eventually I realized, and we kind of all talked about it, and we're like, oh, this is just Castle. This is just the plot of Castle in the Sky. This is actually just a Studio Ghibli movie.
Yeah.
This is just an actual plot of a Studio Ghibli movie. Giant castles in the sky. No one knows where they are. Kind of hard to get to. Monsters are inside. Someone wants to use them for nefarious reasons. They're dropping down. That's how people discover it. It's just Castle in the Sky. And so we were like, okay, too similar. And so when we were putting ideas in the book, that eventually got canned. But the concept of either the sky ones or the creatures down below, the wandering temples, a wandering location, is something that we have throughout the book. And I want to jump back into it and see if we can resurrect this old idea and how we can make it fit into the book now that the book is complete.
Yeah, as a challenge.
So what do we do? Adam, fix it.
So, with a wave of my wand, there it is. There you go. There you go.
He did it. He did the sound.
But yeah, like, I guess we have to choose.
Your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure. Dare you go? Dare you enter this dungeon? Okay. Creature with thing on its back and it trundles along, or floating mysterious island in the sky. Like, I think that's the first thing we'd have to choose.
I like the floating island in the sky.
Yeah,
I think that's super cool. Like, I'm imagining like a big stone square structure with a huge propeller at the bottom.
Yeah,
like even though like I'm imagining the propeller moving slowly, which doesn't make sense because that's not how propellers One, propellers wouldn't be at the very bottom.
But the big windmills, like they look like they're moving slow, but really, if you got up close, they're really whipping around.
Yeah,
fast.
that's fair.
You could do that.
I think that's cool. I'm almost imagining like a square block with like a not Aztec-y, but like almost like a ziggurat style pyramid on top.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a square platform with like just like a standard cobblestone castle with like different flat parts with platforms and things like that, so you could grow crops and such. And I don't know what these were intended for, but they're really cool, that concept. And if we strip away the monsters inside, and we just say like, here are these platforms, they're old structures, they were intended for something, but we don't know. That's the thing. We don't know who made them. They're not first age tech.
No.
But they're not Nakadama either.
No.
So something else, which I thought that was so intriguing as well. Which I don't want to get into that right now, but we had some ideas for that too.
I mean, it could be like even like imagine just a tower and a wall, but the wall's broken off. Like it was a piece of something that broke off, and now it just kind of floated in the sky, and it's now kind of caught in Obojima's like gravity or something. Like,
sure.
And now it's hovering around. That's cool. It's like, how do you do the island, the sky island trope, and yet keep it off of all the other sky islands? So
right. It's a cool concept. I really like the idea of like a group of farmers living up there. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to have one of them be fully utilized by a commune.
Yeah, it's like a group of people who somehow got up there, and they could have like even a myth about like long ago, the person who got us here, had some device, or depending on how long ago it was. Like if the person a couple hundred years ago did it, well, everybody kind of remember and tell the story. If it was 10,000 years ago, and they've been living up here for since beyond anybody can remember, that event might have been mythologized, and it's sort of like sky people came in their giant their ship made of the sun, and and landed here and taught us how to farm, and now we're doing that.
See, I think I'm more of a fan of like in the last decade, like a group of people, like a group of like a glider, like a pilot from Land of Hot Water, from Sky Kite, like saw one and landed on it, and maybe he like, this was like his place that he loved to hang out. He's like, I come here, like he like has a big map, and he's like, these don't never come close enough to Sky Kite for us to ever get on them, but if you map out at this time of the year, you can glide the thermal waves, and it'll get you here.
That's cool.
And so he like comes here once a year, and he loves it, and then he tells his friends, and then like at a certain point in time, he's like, maybe I could just start something up here, and he starts bringing people, and they like what is normally incredibly difficult to get to, he like brings a group of people, and they start like a life up here, and they grow crops, and like he goes and trades and stuff like that. That could be a fun story arc. But it still is like, how does the world react? It definitely seems like 3 floating castles in the sky would be somewhat important. At least people would talk about them.
Well, I mean, it's like, okay, what motivates somebody to do that? Like the story is, things are not good where I live, and so I want to now move somewhere where there's nobody who can control me, or there's no like the King of England is like, I'm going to impose all these religious restrictions and tax you, and so the settlers are like, we're going to bug out to the New World, and we're going to start our own thing.
Yeah,
that's like why they do that. Like anybody who kind of leaves society and goes to some remote place is doing so for a purpose. Now, what would their purpose be? Like Obojima is pretty laid back and chill. Like you can do kind of whatever you want as long as you're not a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, you can farm and do anything. So that's not the reason why this person did that. So there might have been some other reason, and like maybe this is the only place you can grow this certain kind of plant or a certain kind of food.
It only grows at a certain elevation.
Yeah. And so maybe they're kind of like specialist farmers, or people also would do something like that out of sort of a spiritual or religious reason. Like I want to live at the mountain summit because I want to be closer to the sun god or something like that. So we've been kind of making sure that Obojima is sort of a non-religious-y kind of setting. So, like what is that? It's not like, well, we want to live up here because we want to live in peace,
right.
Like Obojima is peaceful. So what is like a cool reason?
Maybe, and I still want to discuss the creatures on the ground version too. I'm not saying I'm stuck on this, but it could be that as a pilot, he didn't intend to start a life up here, and that it just naturally occurred because the reason he was there for the first decade was he was trying to figure out what kept these things aloft. He was like, there's something here, some magic, some machinery that allows these things to, like, maybe they're not floating around. Maybe they float in the same position. They never move. Like they're just up static. In the air, static. And he's like, how are they doing this? Like this propeller's moving. How are they staying stagnant up here? And he's like obsessed with it. He's like an inventor. I kind of imagine, I always bring up Avatar. I'm sorry. I guess I just love Avatar. Ari would defend me.
Ari would say that is, there's never enough bringing up Avatar. So you're within tolerance limits.
Okay, perfect. But in Avatar, there's the inventor that take over the Eastern Air Temple. I might have screwed that up. Maybe it's a Southern. I can't remember. But there's like an inventor, like a group of people that take over this abandoned air temple. The nomads are all dead. Spoiler, sorry. And they go and take over, and he reinvents the gliders, that were left behind. And he also, this is where he makes the big war machines for the Fire Nation. It's a bit nefarious. He makes a hot air balloon and all that other stuff. But like the concept is that like he's using this old air temple glider and technology to try to be an inventor and come up with cool things. And so I could see a character similarly going here to like explore and observe this object, try to figure out what makes it tick, and then improve their own gliding technology. Yeah,
this could be, like we had mentioned in Sky Kite Valley that there's this guy called Rock Rayleigh, and he is trying to get high enough that he can land on the Sky King.
Yeah.
And, do some nefarious stuff.
Yeah.
But he's putting it out under the sort of the pretense of like, we're going to achieve mastery of flight. We're going to fly as high as the Sky King. And everybody's like, yeah, let's do it, Rock Rayleigh.
It's very propaganda-y.
It's very propaganda-y. This guy could either be like one of Rock Rayleigh's competitors and could be up there like this place could be kind of like a moon base. So, you go to the moon, you build your base, and then from there you can fly even higher. And so maybe this guy is up there and is like, if I can just, first of all, if I can decipher why this thing is floating, then I can blow Rock Rayleigh out of the water. Like, is that sort of what he's up to, or is it?
I mean, I could see it being more like a competitive competition. Like, I've got to beat him. But I could also see it being like, aeronautical. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Aeronautical exploration has become saturated with like pompous jerks, and I'm done. Like, I don't want to be a part of that. I enjoy flying for what it is. And
a purist.
Like, it's like, I don't want to go, I'm not trying to, like, I could see, like, it'd be interesting to be like, because Rock Rayleigh is famous for making this glide from the top of Mount Bora down to Sky Kite. And it could be that, like, maybe this guy did it with Rock, but he gets none of the credit.
Oh,
he's like, I did, or maybe he did it before Rock.
And Rock's just a better PR guy.
Yeah. And he's like, he wasn't about the, you know, like his pictures, or not pictures, I guess that doesn't make sense. Oh no, there's pictures actually. There's photos in it. I forgot. It's not just regular D&D.
Yeah,
I was like, no, there's like Polaroids and stuff. These pictures of him up at the top of, you know, Mount Abora with his glider, and, you know, he did it with a small team or whatever. And they get all undershadowed by rock. And it's just like,
this character could be the Nikola Tesla to Thomas Edison,
Exactly.
Rock Rayleigh's Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
You know, like he's got sort of the machinery of you know, propaganda.
Yeah.
And this fellow is the, you know, the purist.
Yeah. He could have even built Rock Rayleigh's glider that he used.
That dastardly dog.
That dastardly dog.
He's like steals his ideas.
Yeah. So that could be cool. That could be an interesting interaction to see a person in the glider community or in, you know, that kind of zeitgeist that is as good as Rock Rayleigh, but it has none of the attributes that make Rock Rayleigh a dirtbag.
Yeah. What about this? What about this guy flew up there, and at this point in Obojiman technology, to actually fly up there is impossible. Like, but this person has done it, and that person went up there kind of to prove a point, but also to kind of get away from it. Like you said, like they're just kind of like, you know what? I'm done with all this competitive crap. I just want to go up here and build my cool, groovy deal.
Maybe he did it out of like, this could be interesting, right? Like he does the thing that Rock Rayleigh did before Rock Rayleigh did it.
Yeah.
Rock Rayleigh gets all the credit. He's frustrated, and in anger, he goes, I'll do something Rock can never do.
Yeah.
I'm going to fly to the top of one of these things.
Yeah. And Rock's like, huh, right.
And he gets it. He does it. And he gets to the top, and he looks over Obojima, the highest anyone's ever been, and he says, what if I just left it all behind?
Yeah.
Like, what if I never go back? And instead decides to like move his wife and kids up here, and like his butt, like, you know, he slowly brings his buddies, and he just is like, screw it.
Yeah. And you know,
the Rock Rayleigh, you can have it. Sky Kite's yours.
Yeah.
This is my new space.
And people tell the legend of this crazy flying machine that this guy had that took everybody up there, and nobody knows where it is now.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it's like one of the legends of like the horizon, people who go outside, who take ships beyond the horizon and never return.
Yeah,
he's one of those tales.
He's one of those tales. Like, and people are like, yeah, and maybe Rock's like, hey, adventurer, like, if you can find that thing for me, like, but it's impossible to get up there.
That's pretty cool. I dig that.
That's super cool.
So it's like this thing that like exists. And on like a sunny, clear day with no clouds, you can see it like way up in the distance. Like,
or if you go to the Aha Observatory, you can look through the telescope and you can see people up there, and they're just like living this idyllic life. And maybe every now and then, like a parachute comes down from it, and it's like got a package of goods or something, some kind of communication, or maybe it's just like these weird fruits and vegetables that nobody can ever grow because he's at this, you know, this community's at a different level.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Shangri-La or something. Imagine you get a care package from Shangri-La.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what is this weird stuff?
It'd be cool if there was like not a secret cabal, because that sounds creepy and weird, but you could imagine like there's some postal knights who can go there.
Oh, whoa.
Like, but it's like very secretive. Like only the postmaster general and a handful of chosen postal knights like make the journey to deliver things. And like, there's this connection. Like before he went up there, he knew, he's like, I'm going to need connection to so he went and talked to his friend, the postmaster general, who at the time was just like a leader of the postal brigade. Like before they had rose into power. And he's like, hey, I'm going to leave, but I need to stay connection. Please don't tell anyone. Here's how you can get to me.
Yeah. Ooh, that's cool.
Like he's like, you go to this space, here's this balloon, you fill it with gas and you let it go and I'll catch it. And you do it at the beginning of every month.
That's neat. Or or like a carrier pigeon or some kind of like crazy bird that comes down.
Or maybe he's befriended a harpy.
Ooh.
who can make the journey.
Oh man. Yeah.
A harpy in a post brigade outfit.
And I want to see the art now. Yeah, ooh, that's cool.
We're never going to go back to the wandering temples on the ground, are we?
I don't think so.
This is really cool.
Yeah,
it's
this
cool.
is neat. I mean, does it have to be either or?
It could be both.
We could be both. It's just a different thing. Like this is its own deal, and the wandering ground temples could be some other deal.
We even just stated that they're not even wandering anymore, that they're just
It's true.
stuck in place,
Static.
floating above the island. Yeah. And so let's talk about creatures that can fly.
Okay.
What do you think of them? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
They're kind of cool.
Because there are intelligent creatures like harpies who can fly.
Yeah, I mean, do we say that they can only fly so high though?
I don't know. Maybe. I guess really it's like how high is that? Because the other thing too is we're now stating. I have to look at how tall Mount Abora is. We're now stating that this thing is so high that like someone who took all of this, like took a hot air balloon to the top of Mount Abora and set off from Mount Bora's peak couldn't reach this thing.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have this thing of like the Sky King, is up. It's up there. It comes down low, but we're kind of saying that nobody can get to the Sky King.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
So there's some kind of, I don't know. Maybe the physics here is different than like on Earth, because I mean on Earth you could just get a hot air balloon and you can go up to the stratosphere. Like you can just fill that thing up and just go shooting off into the space.
Well, yeah, I mean a big thing is like right now the fuel, because like they're not really.
They don't have helium.
They don't have helium.
They have hot air.
They have hot air. But the hot air that they're being produced is from these big pink candles.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's not like they're not burning fuel and shooting jet heat into the air. Right. Like it's like they're lighting a candle which burns incredibly hot, and through some magic they're able to. But when the candle burns away, like the whole thing that Rock Rayleigh's doing is building a big air balloon that has, a handful of these candles in them, so he can fly even higher. So he can burn extra hot and go even higher. But these candles take forever to make, and they're expensive. These ones that burn extra hot.
I mean, because we're making this world and we're the gods of Obojima, like we could just
because
say,
I'm a literal god.
Because we are literal gods here. We can just say that at a certain altitude, there's an anti-magic shell, and that all your candles will go out and all your magic will wear off, and you just plummet like a stone back to Earth. And so people have figured out this over, epic fails, that you can only fly so high, and that your
epic fail compilation of air balloons crashing.
If we could do a montage of just like epic fails of just people like plunging into the shallows. But like, you'd have this thing of where you can only get so high, like the thermal pillars only go so high before they start to cool off. And so there is this limit, and maybe the only way to get to the top of Mount Abora is to actually climb it. Like you can only fly so high.
Yeah.
Maybe the hunter is the only one that can soar like near the peak of Mount Abora.
Yeah, I mean, getting a hot air balloon to the peak of Mount Abora would suck. Like it would be very, very difficult.
Yeah. Like,
and it wouldn't be achievable. Like if someone did it, maybe the whole thing is like you can get to these things. Like you could take an air balloon to the top of Mount Abora and get to this, but like it's not really achievable. For
chances
most
of death are high.
Yeah, it's like incredibly dangerous. Because this is like Everest, right? Where it's like climbing Everest with all of the equipment, hot air balloon, and then at the peak of Everest, sending off an air balloon with a group of people in it.
It's like the dude in the lawn chair that like put in the 10,000 balloons. It's just like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And they go into like air, go over like
they go into military
LAX,
airspace and are shot down.
It's like
by a guy with a BB gun.
It's like in an F-16 looking out the cockpit and the guy's in the armchair. Yeah, it's like one of those deals. Like Obojima, they have first stage technology, like the Broken Bird Airfield has wrecked planes, but nobody's kind of really put one together that actually is functional.
That's functional in a meaningful way.
So, and then most of the gliders are kind of flimsy. Like they're probably like the early Wright brothers stuff. So it's like, that thing can fly, but man, you start getting up and above 1,000 feet, like now it's even 500 feet. It's
the key to the word being glider.
Yes.
Gliding down means that you're not really gaining a lot. Like you get in the reason it's so popular in Skykite Valley is you have these thermals that will carry you up. But outside of Land of Hot Water in Skykite, taking a glider across the Gale Fields, you're only going to go so far.
So they haven't figured out motorized flight yet.
Not in like a meaningful way.
Yeah. But this character, whoever this is, has figured out something where they've been able to power up to this unnaturally tall area.
I like the idea of it being like a natural phenomenon where they're like, I've mapped it out. I've mapped the thermals out, and twice a year, you can ride the thermals to a certain distance. And then he's like, and then through like some, like maybe the same devices that he's using, these balloons that like fill up and fly to the brigade, not the courier brigade's using to fly packages up to them. Maybe that same thing is like, I get as high as I can, and then I activate 3 of these, and it lifts me up high enough that I can, pop them all and then glide down to this thing.
Or, it could be that he's, got either a spell or a potion, and when he drinks it, he can see like tiers of thermals, like thermals that really
heat.
Yeah, like most of the thermals come from the ground up, but maybe in Obojima, because it's mystical and magical, there are thermals that just start in the middle of the air. They're just weird. Yeah. And you can, bounce from thermal to thermal and keep rising up.
Yeah.
Because you can see him. But he's the only one who's figured that out. Nobody else knows about that.
It's pretty cool. I dig it.
It's cool.
I think so. To jump back on it here, I'm not a big fan of like I think maybe the concept that no one can reach these things is more of like a general understanding and less like hard fact truth. Like obviously for this location to exist, the players will need to reach this thing. So there are ways to get there, but like most people have abandoned the thought of trying to go up there. Yeah. Or maybe, like it's just incredibly difficult. And maybe even Rock Rayleigh has said like, oh yeah, I've gone up there multiple times, I've been to every one.
Which are lies.
Yeah. I think it also depends on where they float as well. Because if they float near the land of hot water, that's one thing. But if they float near like the Gift of Shiratashi or the Gale Fields or the Blackwater Wetlands, they're really far away from where these thermals would carry you.
Yeah.
So like maybe just by putting them on the outskirts of these areas, it's kind of difficult. It's just incredibly difficult. And no one's really, besides like the general, like trying to fly hot air balloons up there and other things like that, no one's really attempted to. It's just kind of one of those things that exists up there.
Yeah.
And maybe there's myth behind it. Like people think certain things, or maybe people, again, back to the harpies, like let's say some of the harpies maybe do live up there. Maybe it's like, oh, those are the harpies domains. You don't go up there.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's like really hard for harpies to reach up that space too. So like they're mostly abandoned.
Yeah.
And what are the other 2 locations? That's the other thing. It's he's taken over one of them, but what are these other 2 locations look like?
I mean, one could be the Harpy Enclave. You know, it's like this is where they all hang out and,
smoke cigarettes
and curse and play cards
and eat chocolate bars
and spit.
Whoa. That's cool.
Yeah. The Harpies know how to freaking party.
Yeah, they do.
So, but yeah,
they're just dropping rocks off the top, like,
check this out.
Whoa. They were perfectly positioned over a village.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, please let the winds carry us over that village, and then they're like dropping water balloons on them. But
my gosh, doing a village that lives underneath one of these.
Yeah,
they're just constantly getting stuff dropped on them.
And that's the whole adventure. You go there and they're just like, please get up there and kill all those harpies. Just get rid of that. Like one could be a harpy. Another one could be just a mysterious location,
abandoned,
just like a dungeon. There. And maybe it's like a mystery of things to come or something. You go in there and you learn about things that are maybe, not related to Obojima.
I mean, here's the other thing too, though. So what other creatures fly in our space?
Hammer gulls. We got
hammer gulls, right? But those are not intelligible.
Yeah.
But what can a hammer gull not reach it? Because people can fly on hammer gulls.
Yeah, maybe.
So maybe Hammergulls could reach it.
Maybe Hammergull. There's the Vespomas. Are those flying creatures?
Those are flying. I wouldn't be shocked though if why would a Vespoma try to fly so high up there? They're not super intelligible. But I think the other thing is spirits can fly.
Spirits can do it.
So like maybe. And do these buildings exist in the spirit realm?
Yeah, there's nothing to say that there's not a portal on one of these that goes to a spirit realm.
So maybe. So
here's an idea. Imagine a mountain in the spirit realm.
I'm imagining.
Okay, with the powers of your imagination. Imagine
Eyes closed.
a chunk of that is now in it's part of the mountain, but it's in the material plane, and that's what this floating thing is, and that's why it doesn't move. Because there is a spirit mountain that's sitting, and it is just visible. That chunk is now visible in the material plane, or in the physical realm. And if you were to be able to, find the portal, you could all of a sudden jump into, and you'd see that you're now standing on a spirit mountain. That is,
Yeah. You know what I'm realizing? It's just kind of hard to, it's hard to separate these things as, unachievably high when we have things that can just reach them.
Yes. Yeah.
And especially things like spirits.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like
unless we say it's off limits. Spirits approach it, and then all of a sudden, feel this wave of revulsion, or they're repelled. They hit a wall, boom, they kind of bounce off an invisible wall, and spirits aren't able to go there.
It definitely makes them feel almost nefarious. Like this is interesting. Like, what if these don't appear in the spirit realm?
Interesting.
Like, they don't exist within the spirit realm. Like, most buildings and structures all have a counterpart within the spirit realm, but these ones don't exist, and spirits can't reach them.
Makes me think of it's got some kind of connection with the Gray Steps. It's like this place that is like repelling spirits.
Yeah, it's something whoever initially made it clearly didn't intend for, or didn't desire spirits to be near it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Could have been a wizard that was like, for whatever reasons, magically just shielded this place.
Yeah.
And was like, that's it. Now I'm going to conduct my experiments, or, create my spells, or.
I don't know enough about aerial flights. At what point in time is it too much for you to fly a plane, like an open cockpit of a plane in the air? Is there ever a point in which it's like, this is too high and I'm gonna lose consciousness?
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be super
high, right?
Thousands of feet up. I think people have climbed Everest without the use of oxygen. So that's 28,000 feet. So if you start getting up into commercial airspace, that's probably the limit where human beings are going to pass out or die. So anything kind of below 20,000 feet is doable physically.
So what if these hover above Mount Abora? Because we've canonically said that Mount Abora is as tall as
an Everest.
As an Everest.
Where Mount Rainier is 15
and
something.
And as wide as pardon me, I don't recall the mountain in Maui or Hawaii. But essentially
Kilauea.
Yeah, Mount Abora is the island.
It is, yeah.
It's ginormous. And even here it's fairly small. We have the updated map. It stretches hundreds of miles wide.
Yeah.
It's just huge. Its tendrils kind of stretch outward.
Yeah.
And so what if these things were just hovering even above that? And it's one of those you're well above the clouds.
Yeah.
And somehow
you're way up there.
somehow you're able to exist still.
I mean, it could be it's got its own atmosphere that's magically. I'm thinking of spell jamming ships in Spelljammer. It's there is this sort of bubble of atmosphere around the ship, and you can breathe and you be in the middle of space. But if you go outside of this bubble, then you're just like,
Yeah.
And it could be that, you have to endure this really harsh environment to get there. But once you get through the bubble, then it's like instantly the air is breathable, and it's like this wonderful little magical paradise.
It's difficult. It's difficult to make these not achievable.
Yeah.
I feel like we're painting ourselves into like a box to be like, we've come up with this cool thing.
Yeah.
And then we looked at it and went, how do you actually make this work? And now we're trying to paint things in to make it work.
Well, it makes me think of like in video game when you're in your town or whatever, and you're doing your stuff, and then you look up in the sky and you see a floating island.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, like I know that one day I'll get there.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be in the game if it wasn't. But like right now I'm not able to. But like I've got to like adventure around and find something, or find a person, or find a portal. There's some way to get up there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just saying like it's there. It's described to you, as a player. You don't have the means to do it at this moment, but it's just begging you to look for it. So
yeah,
I don't think it's a bad thing that it's unachievable, at least for the time being. But it's like the sort of social contract is like, we're not going to put anything in the game that isn't achievable.
Yeah,
it may not be right now. You're going to have to do some adventuring, you have to make some levels, or you're going to have to do some stuff to get there.
It kind of goes back to that conversation we were having earlier in the previous episode, where we discuss like, the meat and potatoes of Obojima is this low level where you can't achieve certain things. This feels like one of those locations for when you achieve those things, and to still have like wonder and like experiencing new things.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's something to know that there is more to the island. What just the idea of like, what's on that?
Yeah.
What's up there? What's going on? Like, I mean, how we must have thought of the moon a long time ago.
Yeah.
What is that thing? Like, and one day can a human being get up there and walk around on that and explore it? And will there be pyramids and, like alien landing strips and little green men and all that? It's like nobody knew for a long time. Like, we all speculated. So it'd be the same thing. It's like there's this crazy thing. And like if, like, say on one of the islands, there were these mysterious packages that were being dropped, and they had, cryptic letters, or they just had like gifts, and some Obojimans would be like, oh, it's gift from the sky people, or
Gifts from the sky people coming to a theater near you.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so that's a thing.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. I think we abandoned the concept of them being this unachievable thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy has made it up there.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for humans to get up there, but like spirits and harpies, that's well achievable. It's just not something that's naturally done very often, but a group of people have made it up there and they exist. I think we have to get rid of some of those without painting, like they can't be so incredibly high that you'll starve of oxygen. And it can't be, because, and I don't want to put in paint in barriers like spirits can't get there because, we say they can't get there. I want to try to like make it reasonable. So that means spirits are getting up there. People who can ride hammer goals are getting up there. People like harpies are getting up there, and then this group of people have started lives on one of these things, so it's achievable, but like no one goes up there. So we have to take away a little bit of the the competition that this guy had with Rock Rayleigh, but I think we can still say like, maybe he was the first person to go up there as like a way to best Rock Rayleigh, and he just was like, I'm just going to leave it behind. Yeah. So it's still the same story, but it's no longer this like incredibly grand thing. Yeah. He was like, I'm going to beat Rock Rayleigh. He gets up there and he goes, maybe it's time to leave it all behind because this is beautiful. I love being up here.
Yeah. I like this idea that this character, whoever they are, it's like they built a machine that went higher than anybody has gone.
Yeah.
Except for, like that wasn't powered like a harpy is powered or a hammergull or anything like that. This glider got higher, and their knowledge of thermals or whatever it was got them that they could land on this.
Yeah.
So, and that's sort of the and the secret of that has vanished with that person.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Almost like I see this person, especially if there's like a settled village there now. I see this person almost as like a pioneer in the gliding community, in the same way that Captain Clintock is a pioneer in the diving community and exploration of underwater territory. This person walked so Rock Rayleigh can very annoyingly run. So I like that.
Yeah.
Another thing that could be interesting is, assuming spirits can go there, dropping the idea that they're barred from it. It'd be interesting to have counterparts, like do a location entrance where, there's pages dedicated to the physical version. And then there's another additional set of pages dedicated to these locations in the spirit realm and what each of these locations are in the spirit realm, which would kind of be cool. It also, this could be an interesting metaphysics thing where they don't move in the physical realm, but when you go into the spirit realm, you can see these giant thick ropes that have been attached to them that are holding them down in the spirit realm, and it just
neat.
transcribes into the physical, which is kind of cool.
Or like crazy anchor chains. It'd just be like a thing with a chain, and then an anchor's like into the ground, and you're like, what was that all about?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
I like
neat.
that.
Mysteries.
Yeah, okay, I dig it. So one location is held by this pilot / inventor and his family and his friends in this commune that they've kind of built up in the space. Another one seemingly a harpies domain, and the third one is kind of this abandoned space.
Abandoned space. There could also be like a scientist up there that is and maybe it's an extension of the AHA Observatory or something like that, like a stargazing platform or a or a place where you're studying the spirit realm, like could be something like that.
Yeah,
where you're kind of going into like the wizard's tower trope. It's just like, okay, you get into the bottom of the wizard's tower and you go all the way up, and as you go up you're having these things. Like it would be that trope, but just on a floating island. Like, this is where this crazy wizard does their stuff, or where this crazy wizard did their stuff and they either, blipped out into some other alternate dimension, or they died and they left behind their notes.
We could also make it dangerous.
Yeah.
We could make it a scary, spooky location.
Yeah.
Like the harpies can be dangerous, but you could probably get to the harpy one and talk your way out of it. Right?
Sure.
You go to the other one and it's
harpies
a commune.
Respect moxie.
Yeah. The third one could be something you don't go to.
And it
stay
could
away
be,
from.
Yeah, the harpies could even be like, yeah, we don't go there.
Yeah.
Like that's the time when they stop joking. They're like, and then they're like, oh, no, yeah.
We don't go to that one. You don't go there, kid.
Yeah. Flicks a roach at you. Is that a real roach?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's crawling.
Yeah, they just light roaches on fire and they're little eggs. They're like,
delicious.
But yeah, that could be a thing. And this could be one of the islands that you can, maybe this one is like the one that's furthest up. Maybe it's close to the top of Mount Orbora. And that's the only way to get to it is through the wandering doors.
Oh.
Like that door broke off and took the leap, the giant like Assassin's Creed leap, like and it was just like and then it was running along the ground. Yeah. And then that's the one you have to either to get to, and it could be like we discussed where that door could be a tricking you to being like, oh, don't catch me. Oh, you caught me. And then you open the door and it's like, ha ha, clunk, lock, and you're screwed. Or it could be that it's running around making sure that nobody gets in there. And if you want to do it, then you know, and it's constantly telling you all the while, like, don't open me, don't do it. And you're like, yeah, we're going to do it. And you go in, and then it's big trouble.
If you haven't watched the section on the Wandering Door, which is a couple podcast episodes, highly recommend. Super cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. I don't, you know, like, maybe, you know, what's the thing that's sitting up there that's like dangerous?
Yeah, what is Obojima scary?
Is it a demon? Is it a golem? We do a golem again, we're running into castle in the sky territory. Well, what else could be up there that's like spooky?
Well, we have.
Is it a misleading danger? You know, like someone's like, don't go up there, and then it's actually, you know, like that's the old wizard, he'll kill you, and then it's like, I'm just tired.
It's like the end of the Wizard of Oz.
Friends, yeah, exactly. Or is it like an actual spooky danger, like a demon or a maybe like an oni?
Oh, that's interesting.
It could be kind of like a self-imprisonment. Like, if it is a demon, it could be like, when I was a spirit, you know, going through the transformation, I had the, you know, enough understanding of what was occurring that I came and locked myself up here.
Oof.
Like a self-imprisonment. Yeah, self-imprisonment.
I mean, I'm trying to think of like, what is the scary version of Obojima? Like, what is spookiness? Like,
yeah, I mean, like, you know,
is it a realm of undead? Like, is that too? Yeah. I
mean, I think, you know, the issue is there's only a handful of really, like, most of the dangers of Obojima occur naturally in monsters. Yeah. And those monsters aren't necessarily lock away style scary. Yeah. You know, there's like an evil tree, but you don't put the tree on a balloon and send it up to the top of, you know, like that's the vibe for a lot of these monsters in Obojima. So, you know, what would have to be up there is something that's intentionally, you know, evil. Yeah. So like a demon or an oni. Yeah. Dragon frogs are too big to go up there, so that doesn't quite make sense. I mean, we could invent a new thing to go up there. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It could also just be a spirit. The spirit doesn't necessarily need to be a demon. It could just be, you know, perhaps a spirit that that demands peace and quiet, or some other strange thing.
Either this thing is a lair of a spirit, or it's a prison. Right. Like, if it's a prison, then it was built by somebody to contain a bad thing. And, you know, what that bad thing is. I think Onis and demons are probably the best bet for Obojima.
What if it was a really old Dara? Like a really old Dara?
Like before the first Dara old?
No, I think still, but like, you know, so we say the average Dara is 100 years old, but we claim that we don't know how old they can get. What if you go up there and it's like, you know, the first Dara was a nomad. He was the first of his kind, and he walked around, and his name was Dara. Hence why everyone, you know, hence why the people are called, you know, his name. And he canonically vanishes 300 years ago, and after that his children are born, you know, different Dara of two different kinds, red and blue, and they appear and they kind of go on to build a like a village or all this other stuff and become a people of Obojima. So what if this is like one of his first children? That's like cool. Like maybe this is the last remaining Dara of that first generation, maybe the second generation, you know, like 250 years old, and like they're alive, but they're like, you know, a little crazed. To go back to Dragon Ball, because apparently that's on my head. You know, I almost think of like, I'm gonna forget the person's name, Piccolo turns into two different people. At a certain point in time, Piccolo's the main villain. He's an alien, to give you the context. He's an alien, and he gets defeated, and he gets separated. And part of him is like Piccolo Jr., who's this like kind of anti-hero who becomes a hero, kind of a dirtbag, very strong, but still like a jerk, right? But he helps the good guys now, and eventually becomes like kind of like an uncle figure for one of the younger characters. And then there's like the old Piccolo, who's like an old man version, like of like an old withered, like kind of crazy person. And he's like the good version of Piccolo or something like that. I can't quite remember. King Piccolo. It's been a while, so I'm kind of paraphrasing here. But he sits in like heaven. Like he like sits in heaven with, for lack of better terms, a fairly racist character. And they like are like in this weird portal, like this circular plate style plane with like a beautiful garden and like a house, and he like exists there for eternity. And whenever characters die, they go there and like train, because you can train in the afterlife, because of course you can. And then when they get resurrected, they come back even stronger. And it's like a huge giant golden dragon bridge that leads there that takes like 1,000 years to get to the end, or something like that. Again, I'm paraphrasing. It's been a while since I've read the manga. Point is this, he sits kind of by himself along with the racist character, and is like kind of looks over, like he gets to see the world around him and experience it, but he's disconnected. And I kind of like that, like almost oracle figure, where it's like, I exist from a long time ago, and I've watched Obojima grow during the age of the Dara.
I mean, should we just make it the first Dara?
No, I like I like the first Dara
gone,
dead.
No,
okay. I like the first Dara being mysterious. I don't want to give an answer to the first Dara.
Okay.
Well, but fair. But I think the first of his children or the second of his children still existing.
Okay.
Still is a unique. It's unique. It's unique enough. It's interesting enough to be like, whoa, this person is. And if you want to, as a DM, you can kind of play it as like, you see this ancient Dara and people are like, is this the first one?
Yeah.
And then you can be like, well, no, he has two eyes.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
No, he's blue.
Yeah. Like they're just up there. I mean, okay. So are they up there, and this is sort of their, panopticon, their starship that they're looking at everything, or are they a prisoner and they're still just looking at everything?
I don't know. That's interesting. That's also a cool kind of like it's kind of feels like Judas. I know we were talking about the Bible earlier, because apparently that's trapped in my head forever. But you could imagine Dara's first children, like, there's 14 children, and one of them was bad.
Yeah.
And so, but rather than killing, because there's so few of them, they're like, we're gonna lock you away. And so they put him on this space. And since then, it's kind of like the old withered man trope. Like in his prime, he was horrible.
Yeah. It's like General Zod.
But now he's like withered and old. There's no, it's kind of like, it's kind of like when you watch those documentaries of people who've had life in prison, and it's like, what did you do? And you're like, well, I was a gang member in the 20s and like was a killer.
Yeah.
But like, and he's like, but I'm going to knitting class in like an hour.
Yeah.
And he's like 85, and you're like, how long? And you've been in here for 70 years.
Yeah.
Like you went to prison when he was 15 or something, and you're like, whoa, you are like, they've changed so much based off of the atrocities that they've done. It just, you have this weird experience where like, how do I feel about you? I kind of think that's kind of interesting for this character, where it's like, so evil, he was locked away, but now at his age, where like maybe he has like a flower garden or something, and like he talks to like the birds that come up here, and it's like, how am I supposed to feel about you?
Has he learned, has he got some wisdom? Has he redeemed himself? It's interesting. It's it is now an adventure that it's basically, you could write that adventure and just say, leading up there, you're kind of learning about this character until at a certain point you realize, oh, this is what this thing is.
Yeah.
This thing is the prison of this, this horrible being. And you're expecting that when you get there, you're going to face this, devastating killer or this, really deep, dangerous, conniving schemer. But you get there and it's this person who's like processed all that garbage and is now like kind of just happily feeding the birds,
Yeah. Super crazy.
It's weird. Yeah, but it's cool.
Also, this location, to flesh out in the degree that we'd want to, is like 10 locations.
Yeah, this is like a,
It's like a location for each one of these.
Yeah.
And then in addition, like their counterparts in the spirit realm.
Yeah.
So it'd be 6 locations within a singular collection.
I mean, what if this character, this Dara character, found some way to interact with the spirit realm in such a way that the spirits themselves joined together and formed this prison? And this prison exists, and that's why it exists in 2 spaces. It's got a physical realm and a spirit realm.
I think we could talk about it forever.
Probably. What does the puck of time tell us?
But the puck of time says we ended a nebulous amount. We should have stopped a while ago. So instead,
we kind of went to the spirit realm on this one.
We'll continue along. I think the answer is, though, all with all that being said, this is a pretty cool location.
Yeah.
It just is big.
It is big.
And we'll figure out what it is later down the line. But for now, this was the Obojima Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. My name was Jeremiah. This is Adam. You can catch us on Discord and YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music and other things like that. And we will be doing more content soon. And Ari will be joining us again. And everything will return to its splendor and glory of what it once was.
All will be right.
All will be right in the world. That being said, thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time.